This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to episode number 103. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 31st of August 2008. Nice to have you with us. Have you ever had a project that was 7 months late? Well, today's episode is such a project, because in January of this year, if you remember, I was on a cruise on the Dawn Princess ship in the Mexican Riviera. And during this cruise, I recorded a number of podcast episodes, and they were supposed to be published in February of this year. But for some reason, today's episode was forgotten, and it's now finally being published. In this episode, we focus on improving your project team performance and morale by focusing on the project team members themselves. We have a number of helpful resources for you. They will discuss how you can do this, the focusing on your team members, and give you a few ideas. And we also look at a specific example in which I helped one of you podcast listeners to support a team member and thereby keep a project on track. We are also giving away 2 licenses of the MPMM project management methodology. Today's episode is sponsored by pmconnection.com. pmconnection.com is an online project management portal with tons of information on project, program, and portfolio management, along with Microsoft Project, Microsoft Project Server, PMOs, and the PMP certification. It is the home of the project management search engine and the most comprehensive list of project management events found anywhere. The best part is that it's all free and no registration is required. So let's talk about this giveaway of 2 licenses for the MPMM project management methodology. In the last episode, we had Jason Westland on the program, and Jason's company, MPMM, is the manufacturer of this methodology. I actually wanted to announce this giveaway in the last episode when we had Jason on, but for some reason I completely forgot. Well, that was before my holiday, before my vacation, so I was probably already checked out and I wasn't thinking straight. But today, we are giving away 2 licenses of the MPMM project management methodology. This one is based on the worldwide standards for project management, both the PMBOK and Prince2. The methodology is scalable and it also works in any industry. If you would like to participate in this giveaway and you'd like to receive one, then please send an email to pmpodcast@gmail.com. In the subject line, write MPMM, and in the body of your email, tell me your name, town, and country where you are writing from. And of course, one of these 2 licenses is automatically going to the subscribers of the premium podcast. So if you are a subscriber to the premium version of this podcast, you don't have to do anything. You are automatically entered to win one of these 2 licenses, and the other license goes to the free listeners, and you are going to have to send me that particular email, and that email has to reach me by the 11th of September 2008. I also wanted to remind you that I am now on Twitter. Twitter is a social networking site, and if you have a Twitter account, then you can follow what I do day in and day out. Just search for Cornelius Fichtner on Twitter or go to thepmpodcast.com and you will find my Twitter link in the left-hand navigation. I'd like to introduce you to 3 helpful resources that all talk about how to improve project performance by focusing on the team. The first one is from Alex Satin's blog, which is called Effective Project Management Through Focus on People Skills. And this particular blog post talks about how do you treat the waiters on your project team. He starts from the premise of the old measure that you can assess a person's character by how they treat waiters. And then he looks at our projects and he says, we also have waiters, quote unquote, waiters on each of our projects, which are the people who are below us and who are serving the project, so to speak. And he asks us, how do you treat those waiters on the project? For instance, business analysts. Do you consider yourself more important than the business analyst of your team who are delivering something to your project? Quality assurance, QA testers. They're also below you as the project manager in the rank on the project. Have you ever made a joke or a snide comment about testers? And finally, security guards, help desk staff. Well, do you know the name of the security guard who sits at the entrance of your complex where your project team is located? He's an important person to your project, believe it or not. And how do you treat these people? I really like Alex's approach here. It represents my feelings quite a lot. And I'm thinking of bringing Alex on as a regular guest onto the Project Management Podcast just because of this particular blog here. So Alec, in case you're listening to this, in case you hear this, call me. Let's talk. The second helpful resource is an article. Actually, it's a series of articles written by Ben Mendoza over at the Project Management Hut. pmhut.com, and it's titled 13 Ways to Guarantee Project Failure. And the one that I would like to talk about is in part 4, and it is number 7. Let me read it to you. It's very funny and also very right on target. So, the 7th way to guarantee that your project will fail is this. Always rely on your project team to go above and beyond what they are capable of, especially over long stretches of time. Never be limited to the 24-hour workday. You can certainly squeeze more effort out of your team. Fortunately for you, your project is staffed with superheroes. They will walk through fire for you to get this project done, and they will pour their souls into the project. Motivational speeches and talking big are almost certain to energize your team to perform at unimaginable and awe-inspiring levels. Wonderful. Yes, this is exactly what you should not do. I think Ben hits the nail right on target. And he then goes on with number 8 when he says, focus solely on process and not on the people. And in this one, he talks about the fact that, processes are more important than people. You have to give them processes, and these processes have to be rigid, and so they can follow these processes and use these processes as a way of not having to think on your project. Yes, these are 2 perfect ways of making sure that your project fails. Focus on the wrong thing. Don't focus on the people. And the last resource that I hope will help you improve your project team performance is an article written by Edward P. Youngberg over at Ganthead.com, and it's titled, well, interesting enough, Improving Project Team Performance. In this article, it's slightly longer than 2 pages, Edward talks a lot about various ways how you can improve project team performance. For instance, he talks about the fact that you should be totally clear up front about your expectations to the project team. He also talks about the fact that there is an ongoing performance appraisal. This is not just something that you do once and then it's done. And he also gives you specific ways, and this I find very helpful, specific ways on how to critique poor performance. Because personally, I have a problem giving poor performance to people. It's awkward. It's not something that we like to do, to critique people and tell them, well, you didn't do so well. But in this particular case here, Edward gives us 5 ways of going about it and telling people that, well, their performance wasn't up to what we had expected. Alright, so these were the 3 helpful resources to help you improve your project team performance. If you are looking for more, it's very easy to find more. Simply go to your favorite search engine and look for the term Improve Project Team. As always, you can find links to these 3 helpful resources on our website, thepmpodcast.com. Just look at the bottom of today's episode number 103. You will see a link that is titled, Helpful Resources. And now, to our main topic. As I said in the introduction, this is a recording that I did in January of this year during my cruise. It tells the story of how I helped one podcast listener help one of his team members to stay focused on the project and to ensure that a deadline on this particular project was met. Now, before we start, let me say that the recommendation I gave to this podcast listener truly comes from deep inside of me. By this I mean that this is the way that I approach everybody on my project. The recommendation I gave to him is the way I would have done it myself. I support my project team members to the fullest. I take pride in the fact that I'm a people person. I consider the people on my project to be the most important factor to success. And by this, I not only mean those project team members who do actual work, I also mean the customers, suppliers, or anyone else who is touched by the project. What I do is I listen to their concerns. I put myself in their shoes. I try to understand why they are maybe late or cannot deliver their work in the quality that I expected. I put myself into their shoes and look at the situation from their point of view. Then I find a solution that will help them to be successful in delivering their part of the work. Over time, this approach has made me a great number of friends in any company that I've worked for. People like working with me because I support them. And because I treat people with respect, because I help them to be successful, they are also willing to go the extra step and then help me deliver a successful project in the process. Oh, and on top of all of that, I really enjoy this approach much more than screaming and yelling at people when there are problems. Well, that much said, here is what I call my tip from the ship. Hello everyone and welcome back aboard the Dawn Princess. We are currently anchored here in Cabo San Lucas. The sun is slowly going down and I am once again sitting on the balcony of our stateroom. We are waiting to depart and we will be heading to Mazatlan tonight. But before we do that, I have a tip from the ship for you. I got an email a little while back from Brian Buck. Here is what Brian wrote. I work in a functional organization and have to transfer support from one subject matter expert to a scalable team. This has to be completed within a week. The subject matter expert has already been working on a new product. That's why we need to transfer the support. I looked to see if there are others who can provide the same kind of information, but it all comes down to this one subject matter expert, to this SME, who is already working 10-hour days. My SME is back from vacation tomorrow and told me that he is planning on dedicating his day to completing his deliverables, which will take approximately 3 hours if he can work on this uninterrupted. Due to the other things that will happen once I get his input, the project will be delayed if he doesn't complete his tasks tomorrow. I have reached out to his director to ensure that he has free time to work on this project. I know his peers are aware of the need to work on it tomorrow. Is there anything else that I can do to help my SME get his deliverables completed? Thank you very much, Brian Buck. Well, I wrote back to Brian and I told him that I've had this situation happen to me a couple of times where we were really in a crunch. What I always do in a situation like this, I do two things. I pamper my SME, and B, I try and keep their calendar free. So here's what I wrote to him. I told him that, well, regarding your question, you want to make sure that you pamper your SME and keep his calendar free. So A, to pamper, buy him bagels or donuts. For this particular SME, stop by at a Starbucks and get him a coffee or a cup of tea, depending on the preferences. This will make sure that this SME knows that you value them and that you are willing to go the extra mile for them and show them that their work in this particular moment is very important to you and that you want to show your appreciation. And B, in order to keep his calendar free, when you bring the goodies over, ask them, is there anything that you can do to ensure that they can concentrate completely on their work? Is there anything that you can take off his workload to help him? Maybe he can forward all his calls to your phone so that he doesn't get disturbed during this time, and you will act as his, secretary and take messages, and then afterwards he can go back to all these messages. Also recommend to him maybe to shut down his email client so that no emails come between him and the work. And whenever I did this, with these two actions, I was able to show that, I appreciate your work and I'm willing and able also to help him and this person stay on track. Now, in this sense, this reminds me of another story that I've heard where they've gone to even more extreme lengths to ensure that a special subject matter expert, it was a software developer in this particular case, was able to concentrate fully on their work. Now what this company does is, I think it was somewhere between a week or 2 weeks where this SME, this developer, had to work fully on their particular job. They made sure that they sent a car around to his home in the morning, pick him up, take him to work, in the evening take him home again, because they also knew that he didn't show up on time all too often, so they wanted to make sure that they would get that problem resolved. But they went even further, 2 more steps. They took care of his shopping, so they asked him for his shopping list, they did all his shopping, and they took care of his dry cleaning. Okay, so that's maybe going to a bit of an extreme, and not every project has this kind of a budget, but it's one way of making sure that you people work on your project if you have the funds to actually support something like that. A little while after that, I got an email back from Brian, and he says that I took your pampering advice to heart, and my SME got his stuff done this morning. I work in a virtual team, and he is on the opposite coast from me, so donuts and coffee was difficult. I did, however, discover that Amazon has an online gift card that arrives via email, and the user can then buy something from Amazon. My subject matter expert called me as soon as he received the email gift this morning, and he could not say thank you enough when he called me. Once again, I appreciate all your feedback and help with this situation, Brian Bach. Alright, well, as I always say here on the program, your job as a project manager is to support your team to produce their deliverables on a target date. Project management is just as much people management. And if that means stepping out of the ordinary and doing something special for your team members, like pampering them or helping them to keep their schedule free, well then, so be it. Of course, this shouldn't be something that you do all the time, but in a crunch, go for it. Alright, and that was our tip from the ship. And that was my tip from the ship in regards to supporting your project team members who need to be able to focus on their work. Here's what I would like to know from you. Have you ever worked on a project where the project manager did not treat you and the team with the respect that you had expected? Well, what was your reaction and what was the project's end result? I would really like to know that. Please stop by at our website and post your reply to this question as a comment to today's episode, which is episode number 103. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com, and if you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, you can visit pmprepcast.com. In our sister podcast, we teach you concepts, tools, and techniques that you need to know in order to pass the PMP exam. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. I'd like to introduce you to Kahn's Law. This law says that the more time you spend in reporting on what you are doing, the less time you have to do anything. Stability is achieved when you spend all your time doing nothing, but reporting on the nothing that you are doing. Until next time.